when it comes to the Brewers and the Mets, listen, the Brewers, we all know about their sensational starting pitching. Brett Anderson will hope to carry the lead, what we've seen so far from the likes of Woodruff and Burns and Peralta. And then there's deGrom doing his thing for the New York Mets. ERA incredibly has risen, Tom, from .50 to .95 over his last couple of starts. We hadn't seen a first inning like that from Jake before, which he gave up 3 runs. By the way, completely settled in after that, struck out 14 guys. But in terms of deGrom and his excellence, fine. The last couple of starts haven't been as great, but what have you seen from deGrom overall?
Well, I know a lot of people, and me included, amazed that as he's getting older, he's throwing harder. And I'm talking about big bumps in velocity. And people say, well, how can he do that? Well, a lot of times it's not about how many innings you've thrown. It's more about your mechanics. And he's always had beautiful mechanics. They keep getting better and better. And by that, I mean the way he uses, especially his lower half, his entire body. Let's go back to 2019 here with deGrom. And you see it's very similar to what he had this year, but actually this year he's a little bit lower. He's actually releasing the ball an inch or two lower. So let's go back and look at low release points. These are the lowest in the game for starters. Peralta, Nola, Heaney. These guys are not necessarily using their lower half. Flaherty does. That's a low release point using legs. But look at Jake, how he sinks into his legs and drives towards the plate. So what he's doing is he's not just lowering his release point, he's getting a farther extension out front. That's where the life comes from. But the velo comes from using the lower half, really sink into his legs and almost catapult towards the plate. So to see him add velo, he's also adding a lower release point. That was Jose Urena. That's the average release point in the big leagues, 5.93 feet. Look how much lower Jake is, and Jake is 2 inches taller than Urena. So it's very unusual, and only because he's such an athlete where he's able to do this. And here's a look at the last 3 years. There's the bump in velo, but you got to pay attention to how he has dropped his release point here. So it's, to me, a matter of just being more efficient with the delivery, especially with the lower half. And here's the 5 guys I was talking about, starting pitchers. This is 4-seam release height. Jacob deGrom at 6'4" is in the top 5 of lowest release point in baseball. And again, I think that speaks to his athleticism, that a guy that tall can get that low. So this is what we're talking about with the delivery here on Jake. It's just really just pure, simple. You don't see him fall off to the side. These are the best, I think, in the business. deGrom, Scherzer, I'm talking about efficient deliveries. Flaherty, watch their arm path, but especially the way they're using their legs. Aroldis Chapman is unbelievable how efficient he is with his delivery. And then I threw Zach Wheeler in there as well, because he throws basically 100 where it looks effortless.
So is that why, again, you just answered the question I was about to ask, gonna ask it anyway. So many people ask the question, so how can Jacob throw this hard and it doesn't look like he's throwing hard at all? Is it because of the sink over the rubber as he goes into his set, you know, his position where he separates and uses his lower half, allows him to be able to throw so effortlessly?
Exactly. I think it is. A lot of times we look at arm path, where the hand is, and we look at pitcher's velo, look from the waist down. It's very similar to golf, hitting. Everything happens from the ground up, and that's what pitching is. And if you watch Jake when he goes through a bullpen session, he is meticulous about his mechanics. He gets upset if he misses a spot by a couple of inches, very hard on himself.
So let me ask you that question, jump in right there. Does he feel his mechanics more so, how his body works more so than other pitchers do?
That's a great point. You know, there's a saying in hitting that you have to be aware of the barrel, of where it works in space. And I think it's very similar with pitchers in where their body, not just where the hand is, the way it works through space. And I think Jake, because he was a position player, I think he's more athletic than most pitchers, is very much aware of how his body works through space.
Only allowed 4 earned runs in his first 12 starts, 5 earned runs in his last 2 starts. That's the high level that deGrom has been pitching at.